one of the COVID vaccines is made using genetically engineered disabled viruses. And so I'm not sure how many of the public realise that, but the tremendous success of COVID vaccines is a huge success of genetic engineering. Equally, we've just seen actually Parliament proposing legislation that gene editing, changing the nature of genes, can be used in agriculture to produce improved food products that have higher yield or that are resistant to particular pests and so on. So it's very exciting, but I think it also raises very interesting ethical issues in terms of the public's attitude to it and what the public is prepared to accept. When we have done things, trying to do gene therapy, treating particular diseases like cancer, all that has to go through various committees that look at it, look at the dangers, look at all the ethical issues. If one were ever to try and manipulate inheritance so that you would change what the children of a particular person were, that would have an even greater sort of scrutiny. And at the moment, it's not allowed anyway. But if it was allowed, it would have even greater scrutiny. So I think that there is considerable regulation. The question really is, what do scientists want to do and what does the public want? And there's a very interesting quote from the early American president, Thomas Jefferson, who said that if you feel that the people don't have enough discretion to decide something, the answer is not to take the decision away from them, but to inform their discretion. So it is all about education and all about people understanding. But having talked about this for a very long time, I'm amazed at how people have taken the COVID vaccine by and large, even though it does involve things that people for many years would have objected to in other situations. So it clearly has made an impact where it's trying to save your life, if you will. I think what one gets to is the issue of eugenics, which is are you sort of modifying people genetically, and how does that operate? And at the moment, any genetic manipulation, like the vaccine, like anything else, is something that treats the individual for their lifetime, and it doesn't go on to affect what their children's genetic makeup is. That could be possible in the future. And then I think you get into the realms of eugenics. Are you manipulating, are you playing God, playing Frankenstein or whatever it may be? And those are big ethical issues. But we need to really remember that, in the days when eugenics, for example, in Nazi Germany, they killed off people who they thought were biologically unfit. We're talking about something very different now, which is modifying individuals so that they are able to lead a full and normal life. So it's a very different argument to the one that it was 100 years ago or so. National DNA database, where I was on the ethics committee, is an example of genes and genetics causing lots of fear. So there was as you may know, somebody who is arrested for an offence has their blood taken, and so their DNA can be stored, and so you have a DNA database of people who have been arrested for particular crimes. And so it was feared that this would be used as some sort of way of discriminating against such people, and there was a landmark case in the European Court where it was ruled that you were only allowed to keep DNA from convicted people, not from people who were arrested and subsequently found to be innocent. So it's a very interesting sort of thing. And to compare that to fingerprints, which causes much less worry, and where the DNA causes huge amounts of worry. But of course, you then lead into all sorts of things, because you have something now where not only, so if you have a particular crime, you get the DNA, you can match it against the database, but you might not find a full match because the person is not on there. But what you can do is to look for partial matches, and then you can determine if the criminal is a relative of somebody who's on the database. So now you have to start identifying the somebody and then looking at all the their relatives to see who might have committed the crime. So it is a very valuable tool, but it's also something that is subject to ethical situations. And interestingly, if you join the police force now, you will have to give a DNA test, because you need to exclude policemen who've been at the source of the scene of the crime and whose DNA might be found there. But if you are an existing policeman, you cannot be told to give a DNA sample, because it's not in your contract. So DNA from sort of people who've been in the police force for some time might be found at a site and nobody would know that it was the policeman's, whereas for new policemen you would.